This is where you may end up on the night of April 15th, dropping off your income tax returns at the post office to beat the midnight deadline. Doing your income taxes is always a pain in the neck, but it can be a lot easier if you have a personal computer. Today, we'll take a look at some of the top-rated tax preparation software packages on this edition of the Computer Chronicles.
The Computer Chronicles is made possible by Leading Edge, makers of IBM-compatible computer systems, including word processing with spelling correction, communication software, and Hayes-compatible modems. Leading Edge with over 1,000 service centers nationwide. Leading Edge, leading the way to the information age. Additional funding is provided by McGraw-Hill, publishers of Byte. Byte's detailed technical articles on new hardware, software, and languages cover developments in computer technology worldwide.
Welcome to the Computer Chronicles. I'm Stuart Chaffee, and this is Gary Kildall. Gary, I'm online with the IRS here. Now, why would anybody in the world want to be online with the IRS? This is a pretty valuable database. I can get virtually any IRS tax publication, download it. I can order tax forms, and that all beats sort of going to the IRS office, waiting in line, or calling them up and being put on hold. I can get information here, for example. I'm looking at taxes on selling your home. We're looking at tax preparation software today, though, really, and it seems to me this is the kind of application that might really get people to buy a home computer, wouldn't it?
Well, I think it's one of the components of that sale into the home. It's very difficult, of course, to sell a computer in the home for just for tax preparation purposes, but the fact is every family has to do taxes, and that program actually may pay for itself and may actually earn you money in the future.
Gary, what about CD-ROMs here? Isn't this a good example for a CD-ROM application? That huge tax code regulations, word searches in there?
You just came up with a new product idea, I think. Well, this is a good example. Online services like this can be replaced by CD-ROMs fairly well, especially when the database itself doesn't change over time, and of course, this is a yearly change in the tax laws. So that's a perfect example.
Gary, today we're going to take a look at some of the best-selling tax preparation software to help you decide which program is best for you. One of the newest things is actually filing your tax returns online, and we're going to begin with a report on that.
For most taxpayers, the month of April is not something to look forward to. Preparations for the inevitable 15th day bring to mind accountants, adding machines, and stacks of forms to fill out and mail, even if you're just expecting a refund. This year, there's some good news for certain taxpayers, thanks to the arrival of electronic filing. The H&R Block office in Sacramento is one of a handful across the country that is taking part in a pilot program, allowing taxpayers to file their returns online. At present, only those expecting a refund can file this way, but the IRS hopes to expand the system if it proves successful. Electronic filing still requires a fully prepared return. Once the information has been verified, the return is attached to a special IRS form and taken to Block's Data Processing Center, where it is transferred directly to IRS computers. The software won't look unusual to anyone who has filed taxes. Most screens duplicate the appearance of standard forms and only require transferring names and numbers from the paper to the screen. The operator simply picks the appropriate form from the main menu and fills in the blanks. There is even a spot for the signature, although the IRS wants each filer to sign with pen and paper, at least until the computers offer a foolproof method of identifying signatures. Electronic filing requires less paper and less time in the mail, which means faster processing for the tax preparer and for the IRS. Best of all, it means getting your refund check about 3 weeks sooner.
Joining us now in the studio is Henry Hilton, president of Double Eagle Software and co-author of The Tax Advantage. Gary?
Henry, how did you get in the tax preparation software business in the first place?
Well, back in 1980, my partner, Harry Coons, and myself, he had bought an Atari and I had bought an Apple, and we did our taxes that year with VisiCalc, and we decided there must be a better way, and before long we ran into a company that was willing to publish our tax program, and this is the 5th year we've been doing it.
Okay, and that result was a tax advantage program that you have here?
Right.
Okay, can you show us how it works?
Well, yes, we sort of got into the middle here, but one of the strong features of the program is the ability to itemize almost any line on the 1040, and we've just now come up with 2 sources of income, the taxpayer and the spouse, and we notice that the sum is up in the upper right-hand corner that keeps a running tally. If we quit this itemization, we will go back to the 1040, and we'll quickly take a look at that. We see that the amount has been transferred back and has an inverse video I. Now, if we'd like to find out what the tax is, we hit T for tax, and it will show us what our tax and tax bracket is. And if we'd like to try a little what if, we can hit an O for option and put in, say, we had a combined salary of $90,000. It will now put the $90,000 and recompute our tax and tell us our tax bracket. And now we hit the return again, it'll revert back to what we put in the first place. Now, if we go to line 34A, we use the L, and we now put in 34A, which happens to be the Schedule A deduction.
These are actual line numbers from the 1040, right?
Right. We now hit I for itemize, and we will take a look. There's a slight pause here because of the disk for the
So this
Apple.
is loading the numbers into on the disk that you just entered, and then we're going to be...
And while it's doing this, this program runs on all the Atari 8-bit computers. We have a version coming out next month for the Atari ST. It runs on all the IBMs and the IBM lookalikes, and on all the Apples.
So it's really aimed for the home user type person
Yes.
with an Apple and Atari.
Yes, but it turns out that we think 15% of our customers are tax preparers themselves, so we think it has a rather wide usage. Now, we've now got into Schedule A. We notice that 5% of your adjusted gross income has been brought forward.
So it's already recalculated the figure that you need to compare your medical
Right.
deductions and so on.
And now if we go on to the next page, we can go down to the general sales tax, hit H for help, and it'll bring forward from 1040 the adjusted gross income, which will help you when you look up in your IRS publication to determine what your general sales tax is. So now, if we hit E for enter and put in $1,000, for example, we can add that as the general sales tax. And now, if we quickly step forward to the home mortgage, say we had a $6,000 home mortgage amount.
So this is an interest deduction?
An interest deduction we're putting in. And now we will just go forward to the end of Schedule A. And we notice that the total deductions is $7,000. The zero bracket amount has been $36.70, and this leaves a net total deduction of $33.30.
Yeah. Henry, can you actually now print out on a form, print the results on the form, or do you transcribe this by hand?
We can print these out on a draft form, which is very useful for making notes. And with the exception of 1040, we can print it out in a IRS acceptable facsimile format. And on the 1040, we can print the numbers in the right place, but the user has to be very careful about getting the form in underneath the print.
Okay, Henry, thank you very much. In just a minute, we're going to be back with a tax preparation program for the Macintosh, so stay with us. With us now in the studio is Susan Morgan, president of SoftView Incorporated, makers of Macintax.
Susan, as we start seeing these tax preparation programs for the home, what impact does that have on the professionals? Do they like that or not?
Some do. The tax preparation packages for the home sometimes can be used for a person to organize, and then they take it to their professional to do the hard stuff. I think the people that use it to do their taxes are people that don't go to professionals anyway.
Okay.
Susan, show us a little bit about Macintax. This is quite different from the program we just saw before, and show us how.
Yes, it is. Now, as you see the forms displayed on the screen, this is the familiar 1040. To enter in, you just point and click and type. Every time I hit return, I'll move to the next field. As I start to type this number, it's automatically formatted like a Social Security, and Macintax understands the different fields. These little check boxes, you just point and click, and it'll give you your X. Now, I'll scroll down to a part of the form that's a little more interesting where you enter your money. Macintax will format your money like dollars and cents. The minute I start to enter, it'll automatically put the commas in, and it'll put your cents in. And when I hit return, it automatically computes all totals. So if we go down to the bottom here, you'll see that total has already been computed. Another feature it has is it lets you itemize. If I want to break down a total, I double-click and I pull up an itemization window. I've entitled this one Hubbies because it's alimony we're itemizing.
Okay. Plural.
Okay. Well, of course. I'm going to enter the first description, tab over, and the amount. And now Tax will put the total, my running total, and my total number of items. Next description.
Next husband.
And next amount. Bill was very good to me last year. And I have a new running total. When I'm done itemizing and I close this out, my new total is automatically inserted into the line and it's recomputed. Another feature it has is the IRS instruction booklet stored online. So if I double-click on the text, I'll pull up the instructions. And this is word for word from the IRS booklet. You can scroll it. And the complete instructions for each line are in the program. When you want another form or schedule, Tax supplies 24 forms and schedules plus 15 specially designed worksheets to help you with computations. You just scroll down and select it, and it appears again on the screen. We've linked in the name and the Social Security number from the 1040. Now I can enter into this field, and again it will automatically compute. When I'm done with this form, I can close it out, and I'll go back to my 1040. And that form will link into the 1040 in the back page where it belongs. We have a new feature that we added.
You can import data, can't you?
Right, and that's a brand new feature. Let me pull this up a bit. We can import data from an accounting package, a spreadsheet, a database.
Personal finance software or a spreadsheet?
Anything that will store a text file. We'll come down here and get import. We have a text file that we got from an accounting package that I'll open up. And Tax will read it in and put it up in a window like this. I'll move this window over a little bit. Now, when you want to move your data into the form, you just point and point, and that data is automatically transferred over, like you see there. So it's a simple little click operation.
Well, Susan, when you get a result of this, is that you can also just print this out in laser printer
or an image writer. So when you're all done and you want to print your forms, you just go down here to print, and Tax gives you the option of printing on plain paper. What it will do is print the entire form with all your data. And because of the graphics capability of the Macintosh, you have a layout like this. This is IRS approved. It's essentially printing forms at your desktop.
On a dot matrix, it prints out the form and the data.
And the data, and it's IRS approved. And the 1040 in particular, you can sign it and send it in. And this is the first time you can do that because of the graphics capability. Let me show you the laser writer. The quality of this is almost indistinguishable from the IRS form.
How about the other forms besides the 1040?
All
Does it
of
print
the
out the other
forms.
schedules?
All the forms and schedules that it supports, it prints out in just that kind of quality. So your entire tax return can be prepared at your desk.
What about state taxes?
We have a California state supplement, which also prints all your state forms, and we have the state approval for those as well.
Is that linked into the existing federal?
It links into the federal. We have a converter that we use to convert your saved federal data into a state form.
What helps you if you get called up? How does this help you if you get called up for an audit? You can walk in with your disk, and is that you in any better shape?
You can walk in with your printouts. We actually had a user who told us he was called for an audit. He walked in with his printout. They went through it line by line, particularly the itemizations, which are your backup, and he didn't have to pay a penny.
Susan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to take a look at two of the top-rated tax preparation software packages for the IBM in just a minute. First of all, though, what does the IRS think about all of this? Reporter Wendy Woods went to the IRS to find out.
There's a variety of packages out there right now that you can use to prepare taxes at home. What is the IRS's position on those?
The single greatest mistake made by taxpayers is a mathematical error. And since computers are mathematically 100% accurate, given the formulas being correct, we believe that filing with a computer to help you is bound to result in a higher level of accuracy and more tax returns being accepted first time around by Internal Revenue Service without having to be rejected and corrected.
What is the biggest problem right now with use of a home tax preparation software package?
If the data that the taxpayer puts into the package or the package itself creates an error, those errors are magnified by the number of people who have purchased that particular software package. So we do have some concern as to the accuracy of packages that are on the market.
A lot of the packages actually generate forms as well as the calculations, which you're supposed to use to send to the IRS. What is the IRS's position on that?
Those tax packages that generate a form that does not match exactly the Internal Revenue Service form are going to create problems and may not be acceptable to Internal Revenue Service.
So how do you decide which software package to use? Well, the IRS says you should use the same procedure you'd use for choosing a doctor. Ask around, get a reliable name. If you go with a fly-by-night company, you'll most likely get a fly-by-night return, and you are ultimately responsible for your own income tax. In San Francisco, for the Computer Chronicles, I'm Wendy Woods.
Joining us now in the studio is Jim Peterson, president of Best Programs, makers of PC Tax Cut. Next to Jim is Mike Chipman, president of ChipSoft, makers of TurboTax.
Mike, how can a program like a tax preparation program help you actually save you money?
Well, it can help save you money by allowing you to calculate the taxes the way you really would like to. You can what-if your taxes to your heart's content and really find the best way to file.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
When you talk about what-ifing, what do you mean there? I mean, given that if you do the numbers right, there's only one way to do it, isn't there?
That's not strictly true. There are many ways to file a tax return in some cases, I should say. Some deductions can be taken on some schedules or other schedules, and the net result can be a reduction in your taxes.
Okay, so when you say what-ifing, you're saying not pretending with different numbers, but really looking at different alternative strategies in filing.
Certainly.
And now Jim has a program, PC Tax Cut, to get one example of a tax preparation program.
With PC Tax Cut, we're proud of it because we kept it simple. We published it for 4 years now, and although taxes have gotten quite complex...
Anybody who can make taxes simple, I want to see it.
Let me show you. Before we start the demo, it's important to note that it's a preparation program and a planning program, which means that you can prepare your taxes and it'll print out the return, but you can also use it to plan taxes. And with all the tax law changes lately, that's a really handy thing to have this year. I brought a demo here with me today that's filled out like a typical taxpayer would fill out a tax program, but I deliberately left off medical expenses, so we'll go in and enter those right now. First, I choose itemized deductions. PC Tax Cut handles all the itemized deductions, but we're going to concentrate on medical expenses, so I'll press M for medical expenses, and I'll type in $750 for medicines and drugs and $1,750 for doctors. And let's say you broke your leg skiing and were in a hospital for 2 weeks, so there's a $42.50 hospital bill.
That's probably 2 days, Jim. Go ahead.
And, well, one thing you should notice right away is our forms are completely different than the IRS. We restate the questions, and we take all the formulas and all the calculations out of them. That makes it easy to enter. For example, if you were filling the Schedule A out right now, the next question would refer you to the line 33 of the 1040, and you have to take that and multiply by 5% and on and on and on. With Tax Cut, you can forget that. Let me show you how easy it is to calculate taxes now. I press F10 a couple of times, get back to the main menu, and then I press another key, and now in the space of about a second and a half, maybe 3 seconds for big return, Tax Cut has completely recalculated my entire return, and it provides a convenient summary.
So again, you had already entered all the other numbers in the tax return. You're putting in medical deductions and see what the consequences are across the board now to your taxes.
That's right. And now I can review the summary of all my income items. And now we get to the screen that shows the itemized deductions, and there's the numbers we just entered. Then I can quickly go through the rest of the screens to get to the bottom line, and I see I'll receive a refund this year of $43.56 for this return. At this time, I have a choice. I can go back into the program, make a correction, play some what-ifs that Mike was talking about a second, or I can print out the forms. And I press F10, and out of my printer will come a completely prepared tax return, ready to go, ready to send to the IRS.
You're printing out the forms and the numbers inside the forms.
Yeah, the 1040 comes on a pre-printed form. The IRS requires that. The other forms, we print facsimiles that are IRS approved. We supply these 1040 forms with our package, and it's quite easy to line up the printer in your printer. We've programmed that into it.
Okay, now Mike has a program also that...
well, let's ask you to take over the keyboard for a second and reboot there and get your TurboTax up. While he's doing that, Jim, if I were to use a program like that, is this in lieu of going to a tax preparer, or do I do this with a tax preparer?
For most people, it's in lieu of going to a tax preparer. However, if you have an unusual tax situation, you want somebody to give you advice, a lot of our users bring their completed return with tax that they do with tax to a tax preparer and have the tax preparer go over it just to make sure that it made the right decisions.
Now, is there any liability on your part and standpoint of the bad advice or whatever the software might give you or the program might give you?
That's an interesting question. That's in limbo right now. The IRS last year issued a ruling that said that firms like ours could be held liable as tax preparers, which would mean that for every return that was had a negligence on our part, that the IRS could penalize us up to $100. But we have guaranteed our program's calculations for 3 years to the extent that if PC Tax miscalculates the taxes, we'll pay the penalty for you. We haven't had one claim so far.
Okay, Mike, you've got TurboTax up now. Show us TurboTax in particular. Show us how it's different from the approach Jim was taking.
Well, TurboTax differs from PC Tax Cut in that we believe that a forms orientation is the way to go. The IRS, although they have some pretty messy things on their forms, have nonetheless managed to do a pretty good job of boiling down the complicated tax system. And we feel that with our program, you only have to know one set of forms, the government's, rather than two set of forms, the program's.
Okay, run through it and show us how you would go through, say, a depreciation here.
Okay, very simply, I would pop the menu and select the form for depreciation, which in this case is down at the lower right, and strike the slash key to pull up the menu again, call up line add. Now I get a question and answer sequence, and I'll just simply type in the asset information that I want depreciated. This is not a listed property. I acquired it in the year 86 in the month of April. Let's say it costs $20,000. There's no previous depreciation. We'll take acres depreciation, 5-year prescribed tables. We'll take $5,000 as the expense item, and then the depreciation is calculated automatically. In this case, $3,000. Now, I'm going to transfer that to a 4562.
Which is what?
4562 is the government depreciation form. I'm going to calculate the tax return, and then we should be able to see the numbers begin to flow throughout the tax return.
Okay, so once again, all these forms are talking to each other here.
That's correct. They're all interlocked, and we should be able to go to each of the respective forms.
So you pull up another form and see the consequences on it of what you just did on the depreciation there.
That's correct.
And what do you do now?
So we'll pull up the form menu. Now we'll go to the Schedule C, number 1, which is where I directed it to go to, and we can see that the $3,000 is there. It's resulted in a loss on Schedule C. We can go look at the 1040, look at that number, line 12, and we can see the losses on the 1040. Furthermore, it'll carry forward to the Schedule SE. It also carries forward to the Schedule W and creates...
Okay, let me ask you a question. You both talked about planning as part of your programs. How can you plan using these programs? Mike?
Well, we had the 1987 new tax rules built into the program as a result of the new tax law passed last October. And those rules can be used all throughout 1987 with our program to assess your situation throughout the year.
So, I mean, during the course of the year, you might be playing with what your return might look like under the rules for next year. How about with tax cut?
Same with tax cut. We have all the 87 laws embedded in the program, so you can get a good idea now as to what your tax obligations will be next year. And I think more taxpayers should be paying attention to that right now because the rates have changed, and a lot of people will be paying more taxes. You have to make sure they don't get penalized for it, too.
Does that mean I don't have to buy an update next year, too?
No, updates will be available next year.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. We hope we found some help for you as you get ready for April 15th, and we'll be back in just a minute with this week's Computer News. In the Random Access file this week, the new Compact Portable is now an official product. It's called the Portable 3, and it's an AT compatible running at 12 megahertz. The basic model comes with 640K of RAM and a 1.2 megabyte floppy. It's also available with a 20 or 40 megabyte hard drive. It weighs in as a luggable at 18 pounds. Prices range from about $4,000 for the basic model to about $6,000 for the souped-up version. The British computer company Apricot has come out with a new 386 machine for $4,500. It comes with 1 megabyte of RAM and a 30 megabyte hard drive, and the Apricot 386 comes bundled with MS-DOS, GW Basic, and Microsoft's word processor, spreadsheet, and Windows. The Apricot 386 price is less than the price on some 286 machines. Remember the Sinclair computer, that tiny little thing from Britain? Well, Sir Clive Sinclair is at it again, this time with a laptop portable. It'll be IBM compatible with an LCD screen and a Z80 chip. Word is it will be cheap, but no firm price has been quoted yet. Computer scientists from the University of South Carolina Med School and the NYU Med School have told the American Association for the Advancement of Science that progress is being made in the design of neurochips, computer chips based on the architecture of the human brain. The scientists predicted that within 5 to 10 years, neurochips will enable paraplegics to walk. Is desktop publishing dead? Steve Jobs says it'll cease to exist as a separate niche market in 2 years, and several new word processors on the market suggest he's right. New word processors like Microsoft Word, WriteNow, FullWrite, and MindWrite have extensive page layout and graphics functions built in. Time for a software review, and here's Paul Schindler.
Ich spreche kein Deutsch. Je ne parle pas français. You know, foreign languages always give me a hard time, especially French. In fact, the only language I speak fluently, other than English, is the basic programming language. Now, even though I review software written by others, I still like to write my own basic language programs every once in a while. Not for sale, just for fun. And that's how I ran into UX Basic. Now, there aren't going to be any screens today because there isn't really anything you can show from a language. And you may say to yourself, well, then why should I pay $400 for Basic when it comes free with virtually every IBM PC or clone? Well, the answer's simple. You get what you pay for. That's right, the free Microsoft Basic that comes with the IBM PC and the free GW Basic you get with most clones are difficult to work with, bulky, slow, and hard to debug. UX Basic is basic for the big boys. I first heard about it from a professional software developer, and he agrees with me it's worth every penny of the $400 you have to pay Human Computing Resources of Toronto, Canada, if you want a copy. If you like Basic, you'll love UX Basic. For the Computer Chronicles, I'm Paul Schindler.
If you're baffled by the new W-4 form from the IRS, there's a new software program out called W-4 Helper that guides you through the form. The program catches mistakes and projects the amount that will be withheld from your paycheck. The Michigan State Treasury Department has installed a new computer to answer taxpayers' questions about the status of their refund. You call up the computer, punch in your Social Security number on a touch-tone phone, and the computer, through a synthesized voice, gives you a status report on your return. The mayor of Prescott Valley, Arizona may not be too happy with computers this week. A hacker got into the town's computer system and erased all the town's financial records. Remember the moral, backup, backup, backup. And the president of the University of Charleston in West Virginia is now writing security, security, security on the blackboard. He opened up the school newspaper one morning to find copies of his private correspondence printed in the paper. Some hacker apparently broke into the university's computer network and lifted the personal files. Finally, a professor at Rutgers University says elementary school students should no longer be taught cursive writing, handwriting. He says there's just no room for it in the curriculum. Professor Edward Fry says children should be taught to write in block letters in the first 2 grades and then should be taught computer keyboards in the 3rd. That's it for this week's Chronicles. We'll see you next time.
The Computer Chronicles is made possible by Leading Edge, makers of IBM-compatible computer systems, including word processing with spelling correction, communication software, and Hayes-compatible modems. Leading Edge with over 1,000 service centers nationwide. Leading Edge, leading the way to the information age. Additional funding is provided by McGraw-Hill, publishers of Byte. Byte's detailed technical articles on new hardware, software, and languages cover developments in computer technology worldwide.